Hello guys! Today, we're delving into the ever-changing landscape of NIO stock and its market peers. We'll explore the potential repercussions of Apple's upcoming event and recent bullish developments. Moreover, we'll dissect NIO's technical indicators as it enjoys a 2.89% ascent towards the 10.6 mark. Stay tuned for a comprehensive breakdown of NIO's prospects, looming market factors, and exciting updates about NIO's revamped X6 SUV. But first, let's highlight some significant upcoming market events. What's happening with NIO stock and many other tickers? There are various events and news pieces that have recently come out. So I'm going to tell you why this is important. It's going to be a big day for Apple and how it can potentially affect NIO, and there's some very bullish news that just came out for NIO. That's going to be very good for it for this week in my opinion, and what the technicals are suggesting as NIO bounced today. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with NIO. NIO is up 2.89% for the day, getting rejected up to 200 EMA. And if it breaks this, it's going to have more upside potential to get all the way up to 10.6 or even very close to 11. But the question is, how is NIO looking? What factors will affect it for tomorrow, and what bullish piece of news just came out? So I'm going to be breaking all of this down in just a couple of minutes. But I first want to talk about something else that's very, very important. So the first thing you have to remember is that when it comes to the way in which this is looking for tomorrow, okay, we have the WASDE report coming out at around noon. That is going to be somewhat important. It may cause some volatility, but it's not going to be the biggest thing. I also want to warn you that for Wednesday, we have CPI coming out, and that is going to be very, very important as well. Now, on top of this, just as a reminder, NIO has announced that it has a refreshed X6 SUV to be coming out for September 15th. Deliveries are going to be starting immediately. So that's some very, very bullish news. This is going to be very exciting, and if anything, NIO is once again going to be unveiling this, and they're going to be rolling out very, very fast. So they debuted this about 4 years ago, and now with this new X6, this is a very, very bullish looking catalyst in my opinion. It first came out in 2019 once again, and they're finally going to give us a refresh for this. So this is going to likely lead to more demand for the car. This could be bullish news for them. This is part of why NIO is balancing so far with their deliveries going up. It's very, very bullish news, and I'm very excited for what the future holds. Now when it comes to NIO for tomorrow, however, I just wanted to mention this. Tomorrow we have a big event for Apple. Apple has this event where it may be launching a new product, potentially even the iPhone 15, and is going to be very, very important. Now with that being said, okay, this is going to be huge for the company. If it leads to a big drop, it's going to slow down the whole markets, including NIO. If it leads to a big pump, it's going to help NIO pump even harder. So it all depends on Apple will to wait and see what happens with that event. Deutsche Bank was saying to buy NIO at these levels as they're very bullish long term. The price-press ratio is starting to stabilize as NIO is gaining some strength. And then looking at Tuesdays, it tends to be the strongest day of the week for NIO as we're up 55% at the time. And finally, there's not much else going on with the short interest. Now looking at, let's say this, the volume was 31 million. Not bad whatsoever. But now let's break down what's going on with the chart and just a couple of other charts out there. So for NIO, we have a potential inverse head and shoulders-like structure that has developed on the 30 minutes time frame. But we're observing the 200 EMA. Okay, we want to see if this thing could break or not. If we manage to break this, then this thing is going to start pushing up very, very nicely. If it fails to do so, then we could get this rejection. But remember, it's going to depend a lot on Apple on SPY. There's a good chance it's going to try to continue pushing to get very close to this gap fill. So if you could see a little bit more upside tomorrow, very, very close to 450. But then it's all going to depend on Apple's event. If Apple gets a big rug pull starting at about 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time, that's when the event happens. However, if we stop, we will see a bad vein on the Apple or when the Apple is pumped. Then that's going to pump the markets as well. It all depends on Apple. If Apple gets a big pump tomorrow after its event, if we can see him progressing well in 181, 85 is a real possibility. If not, it will start to sink. So we will see some price action initially. Then we'll have to wait and see from there to see a little bit more momentum to potentially push this thing forward. It's about this 378 zone. I think it could get very close to 380. But after that, it's going to depend on Apple's event. If Apple gets a big push, it's going to push into the 380. If we get a rejection starts cooling off, then it's going to likely lead to downside. And Apple, if anything, will lead the way down. So it depends on Apple. For Nvidia, this is looking a little bit weak as we got this big drop. It's trying to make its way back up to about this 461 area, but it needs to stay above 455. Now you'll go and see what happens with all this other information. We're going to have to wait and see what happens with Apple's big events. I think Nvidia is going to try to get back to at least 455, but it depends on if we could try to break this resistance or not. That's going to be very dependent on what happens tomorrow. And if Apple pumps this market, then you guys can try to push Nvidia back to 465. If not, it all depends on Apple. But at the very least, I do see a retest of 455 on Nvidia, and we will see what happens after that. Finally, for what is it? NIO is the last one I need to talk about actually. Tesla. Let me just talk about Tesla first and NIO. Tesla is looking pretty good. We may get a rejection though, as we are starting to show signs of a decline. If we maybe see Tesla cool off a little bit, drop down a bit, then trade on one side and then on the other side rapidly. And then when Tesla does this, then, if we will see how it works, this can be very important for tomorrow. Then it's going to depend on Apple. So I'm going to be looking for a retracement back, sounds about 270. Then we're going to be watching to see some sideways price action. Then it depends on Apple. Whenever Apple causes tomorrow with the events, that's going to affect the markets. For NIO from a technical standpoint, it looks like it's going to try to fight this 200 EMA. When we look there, we might see some price action. A different type of head and shoulders pattern may be forming, and there's a possibility we might attempt to reach around 10.6. Based on our own efforts, I feel that we might also witness a bit of an uptrend. 10.6 could be tested for NIO, then a rejection and sideways price action. And then it's going to depend on Apple's event for the end of the day. Will Apple cause a pump? If it does, this could help NIO get close to 11 later on. If Apple causes a drop, the NIO is going to cool off and we might feel very flat today. But I believe that before Apple's events, we will see NIO testing 10.6 and attempting to fill the gap above. Now, I just want to discuss a few things about NIO. On the 4-hour time frame, we got a bullish cross on the PPO, which is a pretty decent sign. There's an increased probability we're trying to push above 10.5 on the daily charts. It's getting very, very tight right now. So there's a real possibility of it trying to push up a little bit higher. So there is this daily, unfilled gap up here, which think NIO is going to try to fill before anything. So this increases the odds of some upside, especially because of the news about the Execs. So I think NIO is going to make an attempt to push up just a little bit more, then it's going to react to the market depending on what happens to Apple's events. So 10.6, I think that's going to be tested, then it's all going to depend on Apple after that. Now, I do want to warn you that historically, Apple does sometimes sell off after these big events. But there's no guarantee because Apple did tank before the event already. So I can't make any calls on that just yet. We just have to wait and see. So until then, we're just going to be patient. Apple's big event is going to be happening at about 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific Time or 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're ready, watch for some big volatility that's going to affect the whole market. And NIO, let's see some pumping in NIO in the morning tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens after that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more stock predictions and market insights. Remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Happy investing, and see you in the next video.